get started on our beef brisket tacos. I got 2 big hunks of meat. Each one of these is about 1.5 pounds thick, or 1.5 pounds in weight. Let me just dry the hands off. We're going to start off with a rub. Really easy to do. What kind of the base flavor on these tacos is going to be this ancho chili powder, which is just ground up. Ancho is a little kind of sweeter, a little less spicy than a lot of chili peppers. This is called 1.5 tablespoons, and you know, frankly, the portions don't matter too much. Call that 1 tablespoon of oregano, 1 tablespoon of garlic powder, 1 tablespoon of onion powder, tablespoon. Notice everything's a tablespoon. Very coincidental, huh? Really, it's just about getting these flavors in there and together and having enough kind of total flavor. If you go too light, the meat's going to taste a little bland on you. That was cumin. Call it 1 tablespoon, coincidentally. And then paprika. Now, I should be using brown sugar. I've only got white sugar. I forgot to buy brown sugar. So instead of canceling it all out, just use what you got. You could use honey. You could use maple syrup. Key is just get something sweet in there. Good few pinches of salt, and I will find some fresh ground black pepper. We're going to mix that all together, that rub, and then I'll come back and get our black pepper in there. We're just going to spread that rub. Boy, that rattling is really annoying. Next time, we'll take make sure we use one without the handles. We're just going to spread that rub all over our brisket and get in there with your hands, massage it in, and you can do this several hours ahead of time. Frankly, you could do this a day ahead of time, and it would all be good, and just let those flavors all kind of soak in there. I'm going to let mine sit out for about 1.5 hours, maybe 2 hours. The meat will come up to room temperature, and then we're going to sear it off in a big, heavy cast iron pan that is going to be perfect for braising this meat until it's super tender. All right, so we've got my big cast iron pot on the heat, good high heat. Maybe turn it up a smidge. We've got our brisket, which I let just marinate in that rub, or sit with that rub for a couple hours. Some olive oil in the pan. Now it looks like I might need, maybe they both fit in there. If your brisket doesn't fit in there, if it kind of overlaps, just go ahead and work in batches. Not a big deal, but you want to make sure, yeah, I'm all right. Want to make sure the brisket's got contact with the pan and we get a good char on that underside, because that's going to create a whole lot of flavor in the braising liquid. I'm going to let this go for probably 7 minutes on this side. We'll flip it over and we're going to brown it on all sides. All right, so I just flipped over. I'm about to flip over my what is this called? Brisket. You see, we got nice dark color on that brisket. Again, that's the flavor we're looking for. I'm gonna let it go for about another 5 minutes or so. If the pan ever starts getting too hot, you see some burning down there, obviously adjust the heat. You can also just grab a cup of water, a little bit of water, throw it in there, and that will cool the pot down as well. All right, so we're up close and personal now with our brisket, because I wanted you to see how dark and rich those flavors are starting to get. Now we're going to add our braising liquid, or create our braising liquid. I've got in there a little bit of apple cider vinegar, which brings just a little bit of acid to the party. I've got about 5 garlic cloves, which I just broke up. Since the vegetables are going to be in here so long, you don't need to spend a lot of time kind of finely chopping them. 2 onions, both of those are critical, the onions and the garlic. And then I actually had some celery laying around, so I figured why not, we'll just chop those up and throw them in there as well. Celery you can skip if you don't have it, not a big deal. A can of diced tomatoes, and this is that fire roasted tomatoes, which add another little bit of complexity. And then I'm going to add chicken stock to just kind of bring enough moisture in here to kind of cover 3/4 of the way those pieces of brisket. We'll grab our spatula, and you know what I just remembered? We forgot our black pepper and our rub. So let's make sure we add some of that salt and pepper such a critical component in cooking. You don't want to skip either one. That's good. And then we're just going to kind of work this down. The reality is this is going to cook for about 3.5 hours, maybe even 5 hours, kind of depending on the thickness of your meat. And you want to keep it at a barely simmer. You can also put it into an oven at like 275 degrees or so. You can see the meat isn't quite covered. You're not boiling this. You just want it to kind of sit in there, super slow, low and slow cook until the meat is perfectly fork tender. Nice thing about this, you know, this was now 20 minutes worth of work. Now you can go do whatever for 3 hours. Sit back and relax. All right, let's go ahead and check out our braise here. You can see how dark and rich that that braising liquid has gotten. Now you want the meat to be nice and tender, be able to just fall apart like that. Ooh, it's hot. Timing, you know, this took actually about 5 hours or so because the meat was really large. Smaller pieces of meat will take a little bit less time. Really, you just want it tender enough so that it's shredding or shreddable. You can just grab a fork and you can figure out, if I can do it, there we go. Figure out how easily that comes apart. Might happen after a few hours, might be up to 8 hours. It's really a judgment call. So I'm going to turn the heat off, let it cool, then we'll come back and shred up our taco meat. All right, so let's reach over. We'll grab our brisket here and just bring it out of the braising liquid. Now, it's been cooking for 4 or 5 hours and it's soaked up all that awesome flavor, the chili flavor and all those spices we put in there, as well as the onions, the tomatoes. They've all kind of done their part and infused the awesomeness and the flavor in there. And what's also happened is it's become super tender. And so what you want to do is just you know, use a fork, use tongs, use 2 forks, you know, whatever you want, doesn't really matter. You just want to kind of pull it apart. And brisket in particular has these long kind of threads of meat, and might take a little bit of tugging here or there, but really you're looking for something that's just going to kind of fall right apart, super tender, super succulent, and we just kind of keep shredding down until you essentially have a big pile of deliciousness that we're going to use for our stuffing or our filling for our tacos. All right, so along with our brisket tacos, I'm going to do a coleslaw to top it, which is going to be kind of a nice crunchy, tangy addition to our taco. We've got a little bit of cabbage here, and I like it sliced, you know, pretty darn thin, but try and keep it, you know, in strips. I think that's a nice texture. So just chop in one direction. I'm not making a ton because I'm only going to have a few tacos. Now, one thing, again, taco theme or Mexican theme, so I've got a little bit of chopped cilantro I'm going to add to the cabbage there. I'm adding a little bit of corn, which I just took off the cob, did a quick roast in the frying pan. If corn's not your thing, you know, like roasted red pepper in here would be quite awesome. A good squeeze of lime. And then for dressing, I'm going to go with a little bit of mayo, maybe 1.5 tablespoons of mayo, and about an equal amount of sour cream. I'm just going to stir this together with the tongs and get it kind of coated. I like to do this, you know, an hour at least ahead of time. Just kind of let that cabbage break down a little bit, soften up a little bit, but you certainly don't want to do it like the day before or anything like that because you still want that nice crunch from the fresh veggies. So once this is all mixed together, you're gonna like I said, let it sit, and then we will essentially we're ready to put together our tacos. All right, so we've got our soft tacos, our brisket braised tacos, just about ready to go. I've got a little griddle here. You can do it in a frying pan. Just want to heat those tortillas up, get them nice and warm. Kind of takes away some of that raw flavor. And I've just reduced down my my brisket, or I just pulled a little bit out so that I could reduce some of that braising liquid down. In addition to enough meat, I took probably 1/4 cup of that braising liquid and put it in there and just continued to slowly simmer it down until that meat, oh, look at how delicious and yummy that is, until that braising liquid really concentrated its flavor. I'm going to get those tacos nice and high. And then we've got, what else do we got? We got our slaw with corn and some sour cream, lime, and cilantro in there. Top that baby right up. Again, I like to let that kind of sit for maybe an hour, hour and a half to just soften up. Let that dressing penetrate in there. And then cheese. You know, I think cheese is kind of optional. It's plenty flavorful. But this is a little cohijo, which is a Mexican cheese, nice and kind of salty, a little bit like feta, I think. Throw those on there. And then I like to serve mine. I don't necessarily put the lime on the tacos themselves, but go ahead and serve it with some lime. Some people love a little bit of that fresh squeezed lime right on top. I think you're going to absolutely love these braised brisket tacos, and I will see you next time on No Recipe Required. Alright, these brisket tacos were absolutely spectacular. You know, the meat freezes really well, so make a big batch, throw them in the freezer. You can take the meat in the freezer. You can take them out whenever you want. If you're interested in other taco recipes, check out the link here. I've got chicken, steak, carnitas, which is actually probably my favorite taco of all time. I think you're going to find something to love there. And if you're a guacamole fan, I got some guacamole right here for you. Check out my recipe there. Another little tip there, how to keep it green. I think you're going to love it. Make sure to subscribe, and I'll see you next time on No Recipe Required.